Good morning, we are along the famous stretch with the old city walls behind me. It's a Sunday morning, which means one thing, weekend markets. And along this stretch, there should be a weekend market. But of course, in 2021, with COVID, there isn't. Weekend markets are almost non-existent here in Thailand in 2021. Alright, stand corrected, that is a night market. Anyway, we went there last night, it was still empty on a Saturday night. Busiest night of the week, markets would be bustling, night markets would be having their busiest show on a Saturday night, and it was empty. Let's take you down to Old Town, let's have a look what's open, and let me give you a flavour of what Thailand is like in 2021 with these COVID restrictions in place. I mean, just a quick one, if you look behind me here, lots and lots of places closed along here. Lots of places closed along on the other side of the road as well. Surrounded by things that are closed.
Yeah, it's much more closed than open.
Yeah, up here. Look, here we go. More things closed behind me. Non-existent on a Sunday morning. There is quite a few people out on the streets as it's a Sunday morning, but still. Right, so we are walking down Old Street now, which is probably the most lively we've seen of Thailand, with stores open, considering we've been only in Bangkok and Hat Yai. But you know, this video is basically to share our experience on the current situation in Thailand. And something I don't think everyone on the internet or you know have been very clear about the situation here, and that is that a lot of things are closed.
Especially very different from the booked.
Yeah, well,
of course it was slightly different, but I think they started to put a lot of restrictions in place already before we came, but it wasn't very clear to anyone booking really from the outside.
No, and that's the funny thing is when you apply for the COE and you applied for all of this, no one gave you this insight that these cases were increasing, or you know, you could see it in the news, but you know, Thailand had claimed that, you know, it wouldn't do another lockdown and, you know, all sorts, and we wouldn't be in this position, you know. But you know, we do arrive and things are closed, and you come to places like Hat Yai and everything is closed. You know, there are things open, but most restaurants are closed. Most restaurants are takeaway only in Hat Yai, and it just makes it very, very difficult to travel in Thailand or to even stay put somewhere. You know, we found it very hard to eat during our stay in Hat Yai. You know, and that's because we are vegetarians, and vegetarian isn't necessarily that common in Thai culture, you know, and a lot of vegetarian places were in fact closed. The ones we went to in Hat Yai, you know, we even went to the Muslim restaurants and things like Roti Canai. Most of them were closed. You know, we'd go to about 8 of them and only 1 of them would be open. You know, when you spend 100 baht to drive across town, it's nothing, but when you find it's closed and there's no restaurants nearby it, you're like, right, okay, back in the car, where do I look now? And then you drive to another place and you spend another half an hour driving there, and it's closed again. And on Google Maps it's telling you it's open, but it's not. You know, these restaurants, they can open, but they're just not open.
Yeah, because they could technically.
They could technically open, but they don't.
That's the thing. And that's what you read on newspapers. You read, yeah, restaurants are allowed to be open. But the key thing is they are allowed to be open. It doesn't mean they are.
That's the real funny thing. It's just these restaurants are closed, so you're at the mercy of grab food or something, you know. And there's a curfew at 8 o'clock. So restaurants in Hat Yai close by 8 o'clock for the 9 o'clock curfew. You know, that wasn't very clear when we applied for our COE either, you know.
Yeah, that's quite similar to a real lockdown.
It is.
Just a different way to put it.
They say it's not a lockdown, but
because we are technically allowed to walk around and go to places, but most places are not there or not open. So.
But we've done. This will be our fourth country of lockdowns, and this is technically a lockdown, or it has been. Things are changing now again, but
hopefully.
As things go back into orange zones, this province is staying in the red zone. Things go into orange zones. You still can't go for a beer in a restaurant. You still have a curfew. Things are still in place, which is understandable because, you know, COVID-19, and I do appreciate that, you know, and you know, you've got to beat COVID-19. And I'm not saying it's bad. You know, Thailand is fantastic and it's great, but travelling around Thailand at this time, or just travelling to Thailand as a tourist, to even stay just in Chiang Mai or somewhere, yeah, it's difficult, and you know, I'm not 100% sure whether I could recommend it. And I think as someone as me and Julia feel like, you know, we're not people that want to get the views and want to be the YouTubers, and
we kind of just came for a holiday.
We just want to be honest with you, and yeah, we came for a holiday, and I want to be honest with you that it's not in holiday mode yet. This place, it's far from holiday mode. You know, I was reading online, people were saying, you know, someone made a good point that the beaches will be empty and you'll have the beach to yourself. Well, I tell you what, there won't be a restaurant open for you. There will be nothing to get food. You'll have to bring your own food from some kind of 7-Eleven that you've travelled, you know, a mile down the road for. You know, you're lucky. You know, all this stretch here, everything's closed, and this is probably a bustling part of Songkhla. I mean, even Hat Yai was quiet, and it's the third biggest city in Thailand. You know, places were closed left, right, centre. They were just empty parts of town.
It's actually really quiet in here. We should probably go back and get a coffee.
Yeah.
Because I see everything's been literally closed while we walk down here, so we better get there. It looks like it's going to rain soon as well.
Yeah, it does. It does. So, you know, the other key thing that really got me about Thailand is obviously you can come and things will be closed, and you know, that may not sound so bad to you, especially if you're a meat eater, like you can carry on eating, everything's open for you, that's great. But then comes the issue that that wasn't mentioned either, was interstate travel restrictions. Now this is a killer, this is a key point, right? You come to Bangkok, you do your ASQ, you pay £600, £700, £800, £900, £1,000 for your ASQ for 14 days, and then you stay in Bangkok for a week, and then you want to go to Chiang Mai, or you want to go to Hat Yai, or you want to go to Krabi or Phuket.
You're not allowed.
Well, now they want you to quarantine again in their province, called self-quarantine, for another 14 days.
After you've just literally done it.
After you've literally done it, you know, they want you to quarantine again. And these local provinces have been given the power to do this, because tourists are being told, if you quarantine, you are free, and yeah, you know, here things might be closed, but then you could be free in Thailand. But that's not the case, because you'll have to quarantine again.
Yeah, the way it's presented is that you're going to do an initial quarantine, 14 days, and then you can go wherever you want.
Yeah.
That's what you think it will be.
But that's not the case.
No, for example, now we are in red zone here. So the provinces have changed color coding yesterday, but we're still in the red zone, which means we are not actually free to move anywhere else out of Songkhla.
I tell you what, if you get caught in a dark red zone, which is Bangkok, was Chiang Mai initially, you weren't allowed to leave the dark red zone. And the Thailand do not want to call it a lockdown, but that is getting very close to a lockdown. in my opinion. You know, there's a fine line there. It's difficult, I'm not going to lie. It is still a beautiful country, beautiful, friendly people, and it is still good vibes, but it makes it all the more difficult to travel.
Not necessarily as you imagine.
It's not at all. When you think of a, you know, tourist-free Thailand, it's not the Thailand you think, because this country, big parts of the country, or most of the country, is actually run by the tourist trade. So when there are no tourists here, there is no trade. Trade is non-existent. It's niente, absolutely finito. The other really hard bit about Thailand as well is because everything's closed and because there's not really a tourist trade, it's only a locals trade, which means local knowledge is very, very important right now. And if you can't read Thai, you're gonna have a very difficult time. You know, a lot of the guidance and advice laid out by the local province authorities, all in Thai. You can't read it. You have to try and Google translate it, and that really doesn't work very well. It's very difficult. Very, very difficult. But obviously, you know, I digress. It is a beautiful, beautiful place we're in at the moment. Songkhla Old Town. It's stunning.
Really
we're by the lake.
Might go get a coffee again, huh?
Alright, I think we're going to have to go and sit down for a coffee because it's hot. At this time of year it gets very hot. But I thought I'd just share this because I thought I'd be honest with people and let them know the situation in Thailand. Because I honestly don't believe, you know,
We would have liked to know.
I don't believe people online have been completely clear. And there are people online on the Facebook groups who are actually being quite honest about the situation. The problem is as well is the visa situation. You only get a month, you know, or you've got a month, you've got 2 months here. But if you're in lockdown or, you know, in a curfew zone, a red zone for 3 of those weeks, and you've got to do quarantine, you haven't got much time here. So you need to make that thought before you come, really.